So I've been trying to figure out how I will start this channel. Like, where do I start to explain autism? And okay, so technically, autism is a neurodevelopmental condition uh, where people struggle with social communications and interactions and tend to have very restricted behavior, or they do like repetitive kind of behaviors. So it's not uncommon for autistic people to have some amount of OCD and routines and rituals because it's almost instinctive to kind of feel a need, an urge or need that they can't control. Think about it this way. So autism is pretty much like, think of your brain as a computer. Most people use your brain one way, and autistic people use the brain differently. Not that their brains are broken or not working, it's just that they process information differently. And so it could be speech, it could be understanding context, it could be understanding like subtleties and things that are generally an accepted norm in society or in the community. An autistic person would just not see it or not understand it, so dismiss it. And typically, autism is such a spectrum, but I'm going to talk on this channel about my type of autism and my niece's type of autism because we're on different ends. So I am considered autistic without language or intellectual impairment. Impairment means like I'm not impaired. Like how am I using impairment to define impairment? So I don't lack language, and I'm not like, I don't have a low IQ. So typically, most people who are kind of like me would consider it level 1, meaning you don't need a lot of support. Like I can do a lot of things by myself. I can bathe, I can eat, I can drive, I can, and then you've got the other end, which is autistic with language and intellectual impairment. My niece does not really have a lot of intellectual impairment, but it is enough there that obviously she's not able to do math like an average, 18-year-old or whatever. But one thing that's consistent across the board is that we struggle with just social cues and just a certain amount of rigidity. We're very rigid about certain things. Also routine bound. We thrive in routine. We thrive in order because our brain are constantly searching for pattern. And this is also the same with like people who have ADHD, because I also have ADHD. I have autism and I also have ADHD. And again, ADHD is very comorbid with a lot of people who are autistic as well. So it's not uncommon for someone who has autism to have OCD or ADHD or depression or anxiety, because they're kind of like a result of just dysregulation over sensory overload. If you know anybody in your life right now who's an adult who has a very high sensitivity to sound, like they always complain how everything is loud, like why are things so loud, but then they probably listen to their music louder than the average person. It's kind of like, or someone who is like, it's always so bright in here, or who is just, who hears everything. Anybody who has I don't say anybody, but typically you would have like, I have very heightened senses. I can literally hear from my bedroom my fridge going on and off. Sometimes I can hear when you plug, like when I plug my phone into charge, I can literally hear like not the frequency, there's like a frequency. It's almost like current. I can hear the current, the way we would say in Africa, like I hear the current. Like I can hear that. Sometimes when I wear my headphones, I can hear that little static electric, like whatever frequency is going on between my phone and the headphones, I can hear that. So it's just a very heightened sense. Like one thing that I was telling my cousin the other day about just memory wise, because now that I know that my mom was probably on the spectrum like me, although she was not diagnosed like me, my mom was this kind of person where smoking was not allowed. You could smoke cigarettes, shower, dress into new clothes the next day and come, and within 2 seconds my mom could sniff out that you smoke a cigarette. So you just have very heightened senses. The lighting is just, I'm very sensitive to the light, so I tend to have a whole lot of sunglasses. I am very sensitive to sound, so sometimes even in my own apartment I wear headphones, and I live alone, there's nobody but me there. But if I don't want to hear like the AC or the fridge or the whatever, or I'm in like my hyper focused place, and or I'm listening to my music, I would wear headphones because it's just I don't know how to explain it. Now, when I was a kid, some things that autistic people share in common, regardless of their impairment, is we're very big on fairness and things being fair. We have a sense of justice and righteousness about us, and so when things are not fair, like we are quick to point it out. And then also because we don't really care for hierarchy, like we don't care who's first, second, higher up. Only society makes us keep track of that stuff. So if you ever hear someone who you find out later, like was autistic, that they cared about like titles and stuff, it was just because they were mirroring everybody around them. But we literally do not care about what your title is, who you are. I will speak to and I have actually spoken to a vice president at my old job, as if he was one of my agents. Like, we will speak to whoever without fear. I don't, as much as sometimes I do suffer from imposter syndrome in certain areas, I have no problem walking up to anybody, anywhere, at any time. I'm not afraid of doing a faux pas or anything like that, because typically I'll be prepared before I walk in there, because that's just the nature of my being. Like, we are always ready. We can deep dive on topics and research stuff for hours or not, but and if we don't, we're also not worried about embarrassing ourselves or so a nice summary is, I mean, obviously you can Google what autism is, but in my case, I do remember that when I was little, there are all these jokes or all these stories about how I was very specific. I ate specifically stew. I used to like sweet plantains, ripe plantains, and stew, and I called it red soup. I wanted red soup. It was either I pretty much ate maybe rice and stew or plantains and stew, but stew was it. I was about stew. I was very picky about what I was eating. Another thing was I was obsessed with sweet potatoes. Till today, I am obsessed with sweet potatoes. And so you have certain favorite foods, you have certain palate, because your sense of everything is so heightened that I mean, the first words that came out of my mouth, and that's another thing. So some autistic people have average or above average IQ. It's those who have a language or intellect impairment that don't have a high IQ. So I have never had my IQ tested. Well, there are different ways of testing it, but based on my evaluation of autism, I have average intelligence, although I think I have higher than average, and everybody who interacts with me thinks I do. But it's just a quiz, number. I don't, whatever. But the point is, at a very young age, I learned how to speak. I spoke before I walked. I was a slow walker. I was also a slow reader. I didn't learn how to read till third grade. I spoke very early, and I also, because I have a gift or a knack for languages, I still speak my mother's dialect despite being gone from my country at 16. I'm 40, I can still speak it. Same thing with French. I speak French pretty fluently, and nobody speaks French in America. No one writes in French in America, but I can still write it because it was something that I excelled at. And because of that, I was able to pick up some Italian and Spanish. So you're gonna notice that these kids they just have something that they're really good at than others. And going back to the whole, we don't care who you are, and we're very big on like fairness and justice and right from wrong. We have very high moral standards. I was literally one of the very few people in my family who would stand up to my mother. My mom at the time when she lived was like kind of like the matriarch after my grandparents. Like she was the eldest, and so she was very strict. My mom she was a little bit, she was crazy. She was strict. She was on another level, and in our culture, you don't talk back. You don't talk back to your parents, and you sure as heck do not stand up to them when they threaten to beat you. You don't stand there, kind of like do your best. That was me. And a couple of times I remember my mom just looking at me like, is this child crazy? Like, I just told you I'm about to beat you, and you're standing right there looking at me. I remember once my mom was yelling at me about she was scolding me for something, and I was just standing next to her, and she said, stop opening your big eyes when I'm talking to you. And I looked at her and I asked her, I said, what do you want me to do? Close them? Like, because my brain forgot that, wait, I'm about to be punished here. They're yelling at me for something. She was asking me to do something impossible, because if I am raised to look at you when you're talking to me, but I am looking at you right now when you're talking to me, but then you're telling me to close my eyes. That's like like it was just cross messaging. So these are the kinds of little things that you will notice with your kid. You could have the language. I had the language skills, but sometimes I couldn't understand like things that were like idioms or context. Even till today, I don't understand some idioms. I don't understand some sayings. Some things don't make sense. I transpose them. I confuse them. But the whole not caring about authority figures or a hierarchy or titles, that has gotten me in so much trouble throughout my whole life. It's helpful when you have to fake it till you make it, but it's not very helpful when you're working in a world where there is an order. There's a pecking order. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that for now.